Hey, I'm Pam.
I'm Tess.
And I'm Kat.
In a world changing faster than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea,
High Tea Mystique reminds you that no experience is too big or too small to teach us something about ourselves.
Join us for a cup of tea as we steep into adulting, womanhood, independence, and more.
And for our first episode, let's introduce our hosts. My name is Tess again. I'm a Miami native, just like my co-hosts. And I come from the richness and cigar-smoking island of Cuba. My family's Cuban American, and you can imagine the house gets pretty loud. Mostly, I think it's probably because we have a lot to say. So that explains why I'm here today, talking to you all. And doing my roots some justice. But on a real personal level, I think that my own family has really contributed to my interest in storytelling and why I'm here today. You know, I grew up in a family very, very heavy Catholicism, and in Catholicism, lots of stories. So of course, I was naturally drawn to that. And, we look forward to telling some more stories and some more deviations from our, roots, but definitely lessons nonetheless.
Hey guys, my name's Pam and I am Japanese Peruvian, third generation Japanese descent. And I feel like both of those cultures kind of lend themselves really easily to a lot of different rituals, a lot of different traditions that just have mysticism at the root. So, I'm really excited to explore that with this podcast and kind of really share with everybody our experience. I consider myself a dabbler. I like to learn a little bit about everything and kind of know how everything works behind the scenes. And this has kind of been a passion project that has been on my mind since 2020. So it's really cool to see it finally come into fruition. And I'm very excited to share with you guys, everything that we have in store.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kat, and I am thrilled to be here with you all. I am the third and final Miami girl as a part of this podcast. My family, however, is from Chicago and New Orleans. Chicago on my mom's side, we're actually of Czech Republic descent. And on my father's side, we are Cajun from New Orleans. But I'm born and raised here in Miami my entire life. And I am a tour guide by day for the city of South Beach, and by night, and sometimes also by day, I am an actor. That's what I studied in college, what I've been doing my entire life, and where I find my bliss in this world. And as far as my journey with mysticism and spirituality, I'm really excited to kind of open those doors. These are doors that I haven't opened very widely before. And it's because I was actually raised Baptist Christian, and my journey with the mysticism and spirituality that I have today is very newly formed for many others. I've only been experiencing this journey that I'm on now for about 6, maybe 7 years. And so I've learned a lot in a very short period of time, and I'm excited to share the things I'm learning and have learned with you all.
And sharing it all around tea, of course. High Tea Mystique, that's in our name. And featured today is a blooming tea gifted by our very own Pam. And blooming teas historically are a famous white tea. And we're really going to be getting into teas and the types of teas just because, besides the culture surrounding tea time and gossiping and storytelling and women, we're also celebrating some themes that even spiritually tea brings to conversation, tea brings to moments, and which is why we chose the white tea, because it's very cleansing, and a blooming tea, because just like this is the blooming of our first episode, we are going to bloom with our teas as well.
Yes. And our teas are sweetened by a lovely small business, a personal friend of mine. Her name is Juliana Romero, and she owns Honeybee Jewels. And that is what we've all used to sweeten up our lovely little cups of tea this afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time you're listening to us today.
And just to help with the ambiance, we've also set this delicious smelling white tea wax melt. that is actually from another local business here by Elise. I actually won a raffle that she was giving in her Instagram. And so we're kind of smelling it today. So a quick little shout out. I love your earrings and your waxes smell even better. And with that, I think we can get started with the episode for today because I'm very excited.
Woo! All right. So today's episode this week, 28 things. Whew, tough. I wish I knew before I was 28.
Can we all take a breath before we start?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
It's funny that we're talking about this because I think just to set the mood, right? And let's declutter some expectations. 28 is definitely not the end goal here. We're not like, all right, that's it, no more learning. But we're definitely celebrating bringing lessons to this year. We've all reached this year. We're all proud to reach this year. And I think it's about reversing that concept that aging is about getting somewhere, hurtling towards this destination. No, it's about bringing every year to the present you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Some lessons that we brought to the present us.
Yeah. And I guess I'll just start us off. And what better place to start us off with some things that I've learned regarding dating, especially in the Miami scene here, can be a little bit of a vapid surface level culture. And there's some things that I've learned. So one of my first lessons that I'd like to share with you all is your love for someone should never be an excuse to stay in a toxic environment, especially when it comes at the expense of your own mental health. So this is something that I've had to really sit down and think about and kind of internalize, where a lot of the times we make excuses for other people, oh, but they're mentally unwell or they need my help. One of the things we don't really realize is that one of the excuses we tell ourselves too is, but we love them so much. And how can I not do this for somebody that I love? And for me, that's kind of been a very eye-opening lesson, because as much as I love this person and I'm willing to do something for them, if that results in my own mental health deteriorating, or if that results in an environment that is not a healthy environment for me to be in, what does that say for the love that I have for myself? So me loving somebody else is not enough of an excuse to justify that lack of love that I'm giving myself. And I think that's super important. Took me 28 years to learn. So hopefully you guys can learn from me, but that's my very first one.
Yeah, it's a great one too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move us on to my first one, which is just as you are changing, so are others. So always be kind. I think that this can apply to, yes, in our romantic relationships. However, it can also cross over to our relationships with our friends and family as well. But it's always going to be with relationships that have been in existence for a long time. Anything over like a couple of years, really, that you've known someone. And we are always changing. And we recognize this about ourselves. It's so easy for us to look back at photos or videos of ourselves from a month ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and be able to look back and be so grateful for how we've changed. Or sometimes we might go back and have a more skeptical eye, but it's only with the intention to be better from it. That, I'm not necessarily moving as uphill, I'm moving a little bit more linear. You would want to kind of change that, fine tune it. But for some reason, it's like we take an approach of a little bit less love with others in our lives, especially people who have hurt you in the past. And it's hard to let go of that hurt because maybe you feel like you didn't have proper closure with that person, or there's something that you're still expecting them to do that they haven't done. But it's important to remember that just as you are changing, this person is also having their own internal monologue that is their life and what they're trying to go through and the ways that they're trying to grow. And so never discredit the fact that you may not be seeing that someone is changing for the better. However, they really are doing the best that they possibly can. And if that doesn't align with the best that you think you can do or the best that you think you deserve, well, then you have some discernment to do. Thank you so much for Pam sharing that first one that she had. But that doesn't change your the way that you act with that person. Always act out of love. Always be kind. You never know what someone else is going through. There's always a reason. Always a reason, my friends.
Yeah, and just to encourage love, I think I'm going to share mine. I definitely feel going into a relationship, dating, you need to know how to take care of something besides yourself. And I'm speaking to all the, lonely children out there, like siblings that were just them and their parents, because not to stereotype, but I'm going to do it anyway. It kind of becomes a habit where you don't really think it, you're not being malicious or anything, but you kind of forget like, oh yeah, my parents have always been focused on me, and that can kind of be easily carried on. And, I'm kind of this way to a fault. I always feel like I need to take care of other people before myself. And even though it is a fault, I do think, however, it's so intrinsic. It's so important because if you have no experience catering and kind of reading someone else's needs, there's no way that you're going to make it to marriage. There's no way. There's just no benchmark that's going to be met unless you know how to take care of something else. And let's start small, right? Let's buy a plant and make sure it survives for 6 months. And once we've gotten that, benchmark, let's buy a hamster, let's buy a cat, let's go out and adopt a dog and bring that into our lives and care for it and expand, your awareness besides just the bubble of, your needs and everything else. I think that is so important in love, and definitely for the other person too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. My next lesson, I think I've heard almost every single person in my life think. And it's, there's no such thing as the right person and the wrong time. So I've heard this so many times. I've thought of it myself. And honestly, I feel my experience has shown me that if you have the thought, things will get better once we move out. Things will get better when we get married. Things would be better if XYZ. If you have to think that, that's not the right person for you. And even if, you think to yourself, oh my God, there's so many things about this person. They're so great, but why is all of these things not working out? It's just the timing. The timing is wrong. No, timing is always on time. They are, if they came into your life, they came into your life. I'm personally somebody that believes everything in life happens for a reason. So it's not so much that they are here at the wrong time. Maybe they are the right person for what they're here to, for the purpose that they're here to serve. Maybe they're here to serve for you to listen, to learn a lesson or to realize some things. And I've noticed and have had needed to teach myself that once I have this train of thought, even with the person that I thought, okay, well, it definitely wasn't with this person before, but this one's better. But if you still have those thoughts, no matter how much better they were, maybe 5-10% better than your last relationship, it's still not exactly the right person. Like when it's the right person, as far as I've seen in my experience, the experience that my friends have had, they don't have that antsy, anxious feeling of like, oh my God, but things just don't seem to be working out for whatever reason. No, if it's the right person, it's gonna feel easy. I'm not saying you're not gonna have fights or anything like that, but it's not gonna be that gut feeling that you have that it's like, if only. If you feel that, that's your intuition telling you something like, listen, girl, he was pretty great, and maybe part of the reason he was pretty great is because you made him great. The way you're seeing them makes them great. But there's this thing here that you're hearing and you're saying, oh, it's the timing, but it's not. If not now, they would probably never do it. And that's something I've really learned that you really can't. So if you're thinking that, either enjoy it for what it is or move on.
Enjoy it for what it is or move on, which is a great segue into my next tip, which is, all right. So my next tip is, this is your sign. If you love making lists, you look forward to when you wake up in the morning, having a nice schedule of everything that you're going to be doing that day. You've got it down to like every 30 minutes, you know exactly what you're going to be doing in those intervals. This tip is for you. Stop making lists if you're not achieving the tasks. Are you making a list of 25 things that you need to do today on this beautiful Monday because you know that you're going to have like this awesome surge of energy and you just want to get everything done? You're setting yourself up for failure, my friend, because we all know that we're not going to get a list of 25 things done in a day. We would love to. You know, me Sunday night thinks that I can do anything, thinks that I'm a superhero, especially on Mondays. But the fact of the matter is that I'm not going to do all of those things. And around Monday at around 6:00, when I finally come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to get to do everything on my list, guess how I feel? I feel downtrodden about a goal that no one gave me except for myself. So I can change that by either making my list smaller, you know, keeping it down to the things that are like, okay, what am I going to feel 1,000 times better if I get done today? Like, what are 3 things that I need to do today? Okay, I'm going to get those 3 things done. And if I can get those 3 things done, boom, that's it. Everything else is extra. Everything else is an advantage that I now have. But I'm not limiting myself and my happiness because I'm confining myself by doing this to having to follow by this list. Because that's just no way to live, you know? And unfortunately, I spent way too much time of my life making these lists that I would never complete. So I make myself feel like a failure. And then I'm also spending too much time on something that's not serving me. You know, think about all of the time I've wasted making lists, you know, but no more. I've stopped making lists and since I've stopped making those lists, I've started realizing, one, how forgetful I am and how reliant I was on those lists to remind me of what I even needed to do. So now my memory is improving as far as like what's important to me. And 2, I'm starting to really understand what's important to me and what's really not that important. And I can kind of just let slide.
Yeah. And I think even for that, like a good, I guess, rule of thumb is to focus on 3. You know, I've heard it before in a different podcast. And I've seen it a lot on agendas too, like your top 3, your daily 3. So you might not be able to do 25. You can at the very least, get 3 things done every single day. So if you focus on those 3 things, you'll be way ahead than focusing on the 25 that you can never get done.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how it ends up small is less is more. Less is more.
What is it?
It's a secret tip.
The tortoise and the hare. Slow wins the race, or whatever the phrase is. Mm-hmm. Slow and steady wins the race.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we think about even this episode, right? I hope you know we say 28 things because really we know you're going to take away 3. And that's okay because that's our goal. And really, I think we can speak to many people, and maybe, you know, we're speaking to specifically people or specific demographics here, but I think we've already kind of identified some things that need to change for, you know, certain ideals for even like women in Miami and even, you know, the men out there can listen to this too, but sorry guys, we're girls, we can't help it. I think, you know, Pam also has some more about love that we can still get into because they're really good. Yeah.
All right. So this one is also kind of specific. The 3 seems to be trending here. So my next lesson that I learned is take your time before getting serious with someone, because people don't realize how much they lie to themselves for the sake of pursuing a relationship. And I decided to phrase this from the perspective of lying to ourselves, right? Because we hear all the time, oh my God, yeah, oh, he's into this. Yeah, I'm into that, you know, and lying to the other person about who we are. But I don't think we also realize how much we lie to ourselves about the person in front of us. And we say, no, they're not like that. No, but I can change him. No, but this and that. You know, we tend to lie to ourselves really just for the sake of having a relationship, I feel, not even because we like the person. Some of the times it's just because we just don't want to be alone. And so I had a conversation with a guy friend of mine, and we were kind of talking about how long does it take a guy to lose interest in terms of like putting in that effort to try to get into a girl to get with a girl, and hook up with them, because at some point it ain't worth it to them anymore. They can find somebody else to try to get into. And we kind of talked about it, and he told me about the 3-month rule. Now, I don't know if this is legitimate or not, but with my own observations and with relationships that friends have had, my own experiences, 3 months seems to be like a good grace period of getting to know someone, not even, I'm not saying like you have to wait 3 months to have sex with them or anything, but just 3 months of getting really serious and see how much they're lying to themselves, how much they're lying to you, how much you might be lying to yourself about this person, because you're stuck in this like euphoria of getting to know somebody new and maybe they could be the one. And so, maybe there's also, in my personal experience, things that they say that they do or they'd be willing to do, or the type of person that they are. And then after those 3 months, you kind of learn like, that was a lie. Or they said they would do this, but they haven't done it yet. Or, they would never do this, but I haven't really seen the evidence for that. So if they haven't done that in 3 months, or even if they say they're going to change and 3 months pass by and they haven't done anything, that just might be something that's a part of their own character. And it's really hard to change. We are who we are. We will change, and there's evolutions that we go through. But at the end of the day, there's some core things about ourselves that's just too hard to change. And so that 3-month rule, 3 things a day, wait 3 months, I think will save a lot of people a lot of heartache. I know it's kind of helped me. And the more that I reflect back on my own experiences, the more I realize how much that heartache, that rule could have saved me. So hopefully, it saves some of you guys from more heartache.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to get into your last one?
Okay, sure. And just because, I have most of the dating ones. So this will be my last one for dating. And they all kind of sound similar, but they're still very distinct and different in their own ways. So my last one for dating is, what might be too much for someone can be little to nothing for someone else. And honestly, this is something that really has hit me recently with my own experience. My last relationship, it got a little bit better, but there were still a lot of things where I was like, it was the same thing, or this just something similar that seemed to be really difficult to get from my significant other. And so comparing that with my previous experience, I thought maybe it's me. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe this isn't something that I can find from the type of people that live here in Miami. Maybe I have to go look somewhere else. And then, I met somebody else and I'm talking to this person, and they're kind of showing me like the things that I've been asking for, that if I'm going to be honest with you guys, sound like just bare necessities, things that really do not take a lot. He's shown me like, that's literally nothing. Like, I would expect anybody to want these things in a relationship. Or these are just things that I would expect to do in one. Like, how do people not just do these in relationships? And it's different, it's a different person, different priorities. But it just goes to show you that sometimes you're not the problem. It's just not a good match. And so if it's too much for someone else, just rest assured that there is somebody else out there who thinks, wow, that's nothing. Like, what else do you need? Like, is there anything more? Is that all you need? Because that's a piece of cake. So just hang in there. You'll find them.
So here we are, right? If you have a successful relationship, let's make sure everything else goes smoothly as well. So we're going to talk about those achievements, getting those successes, and how to deal with them at 28. I think one thing that I'm definitely going to get into is probably the hiring. And one thing that I'm definitely going to get into is probably looking for your dream job, which everyone thinks is always the peak of success. You have the job. This is where you've succeeded. But in my experience, it's not about the dream job. It's about the dream career. And that can literally start anywhere. Myself, I'm an educator. I'm working in higher education. And if I'm being honest with everybody, I didn't see this for myself even 5 years ago. I kept on saying, I want to be a writer. I want to be an editor. And I feel like a lot of young adults and even, students that I work with kind of say the same thing. We're English majors. We don't want to be teachers. So we're trying to end that stereotype. And we say we're going to be writers. We're going to be editors. Because somehow we feel like being an editor is less difficult than being a writer, but it's not. But meanwhile, we have so many opportunities that make us writers, that make us editors without even giving us the title. And I have personally learned to value every experience. Even if my title was literally, part-time tutor, I was still an editor and I was still a writer in those roles. And I think professionally and, building myself up professionally as well, you have to learn how to value those things, because if you don't, that dream interview is definitely not going to. So again, it's not about applying for the perfect job. It's about starting wherever you are and using those skills, start using those skills then. Because listen, if you don't start editing somewhere, you're never going to be an editor. If you don't start writing somewhere, you're never going to be a writer. So, hey, if you're working at Denny's and they ask, to make a weird slogan for a TikTok reel, do it. Even if you're a waitress or, a cook or a cleaner, take those opportunities, because that's literally the dream career. It's not about waiting for the job. It's about doing it now.
Yeah, I like that. I agree.
And of course, to kind of wrap up, well, at least my ends of giving you all hopefully the keys to success and great achievements is, kind of goes back to what I was just saying. Nothing is isolated. I had a really successful career. I say that as if it's over. I'm still doing that. I mentor students, and I have helped a lot of students, build a portfolio to get into colleges that kind of range anywhere from like just other state colleges, as prestigious as like MIT to, Boston College. And they're all from Miami, and they're all immigrants, and they're all like, going through by the skin of their teeth. And they're at these places because we've constantly had sessions and mentorships about, listen, don't look at, a volunteering as just, oh, well, I was supposed to do that. No, you did it. So something definitely came out of it. And that's why, this dream, this idea of like, having the dream job, it doesn't even start when you're getting paid. It starts when you make the decision to get it. Why, right? Is it looking at a honeycomb and realizing I want to be an engineer? Because if a bee can do that, what the hell can I do, right? Or if it's about realizing you want to be a doctor because, that idea of a heart thumping is exactly what you feel every time, someone's in need of you, right? Or in need of service. It really starts anywhere. And I guess it comes back again to valuing things. Nothing is isolated. Information and experience, anywhere you've gained it, will grow exactly where you want to be in life. It's just about you seeing it and valuing it that way.
That was beautiful, Tess. Thank you.
I hope, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely gave us some good tips on specifically achieving success. So the next kind of area that we would like to just highlight some, again, my friends, these are some things that we've learned. Some of them happen to be a little bit more intricate, and some of them, like a couple that I'm going to share with you guys now, they sound so simple, but it's taken years for me to genuinely start practicing these. So my first one is to prioritize rest. because what you say yes to requires no in other areas. And this will always happen. You know, it starts like, let's start it off with just about dieting, right? We know that diets don't work. We know that no diet will ever work because a diet is something that restricts the amount of food that you enjoy eating. So it can't work. It's about rewiring, you know, your brain and your lifestyle to a way that supports you growing in healthier and more sustainable ways. And so in doing that, you know, you can be trying to do something, but you have to remind yourself and be gracious to yourself that you're doing something that's very out of your comfort zone, even if it's something that you've always wanted to do. And this applies to our fitness levels. This applies to the fact that, okay, I try to do I'm doing 15 minutes of exercise every day this week. And I'm finding that my body is much more exhausted than it used to be. So tonight is a Friday night, but I don't really want to go out, but I already promised my friends that I'm going to go out tonight. But what are you prioritizing here? Are you prioritizing yourself and your body? Or are you prioritizing your friends who really aren't going to care either way if you go out with them tonight or not? You know, you're not the be all end all of their life and of their plans. So you have to remind yourself that you are in control of your schedule and you are in control of how you're going to feel that morning on Saturday. If you decided to go out and dance to a bunch of Bad Bunny with your friends, you know, when you're sore, then that's the body that you're showing how you care to, you know, and if you really do care about your body, which I'm sure all of us do, but we forget to show that care to our bodies, you know, that's rest is one of the best ways that we can do it. You know, statistics say that we spend a third of our life sleeping, but that, my friends, I'm pretty sure is dropping little and little, especially in the United States of America, where capitalism reigns and it's all about how much can you work? How much more can you work? To how, you know, like it's all about a hustle. And it's important to remind ourselves that that's unrealistic and that's not curated by man. It's curated by machine and men who function like machines. And so just remind yourself to be easy. And when you feel that your body is not in alignment, it's time for you to stop and get it. So,
yeah. And even talking about capitalism and, you know, being of a for-profit mindset, I think there's always something that, you know, rest will increase if you're looking for good product. So think about that, capitalists. Think about that.
You gave them a good one to think on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Take it away, Pam.
So mine is kind of similar. My wellness/health lesson that I've learned is that your environment and also how you speak to yourself truly does affect you. You know, a lot of the times in this hustle and grind culture, very easy to just think, oh, I'll just get paper plates. Oh, it's okay, I'll clean it tomorrow. Oh, but my room's gonna be a mess because I work so hard. But, you know, that environment of what's around you and how it looks is a huge reflection on where you are at mentally as well. And I always find myself feeling a lot more stressed and being unable to rest as well as I could be when my environment is messy, when things are not in their place, when I haven't cleaned up after a while. I will never be able to get the amount of rest that I truly need, like a deep, powerful rest, as I would in an environment that's nice and clean and things are in their place and they're organized and I don't have to worry, because we don't notice, but all those little things kind of affect you. And it's the same way with how you talk to yourself, right? Like right now on social media, what's really popular are affirmations. But I remember having this conversation with one of my friends who all the time, you know, they would make jokes about dying, depression, killing themselves, very dark humor, right? And it got to a point where I could, you know, notice that maybe these weren't jokes anymore. And I would have to remind them, you should probably start trying to talk better about yourself or not try to joke about that as much. Like, I get what you're trying to say, but maybe not at this frequency, because then what you're saying and what you surround yourself with becomes your reality. And if you're always talking down to yourself, if you're always thinking all these horrible things about yourself, like, you're just going to keep deteriorating yourself, and it is going to affect you, and nobody else can look out for you. Your parents might as best as they can, but you have to make sure that you look out for yourself as well. So take care of your environment. Be careful with how you talk to yourself. The same amount of love that you express to other people, don't forget to show that to yourself. And you'll, I usually see a change in my mental health. And in turn, that kind of has a domino effect with, I mentally feel good. Now I kind of want to go to the gym because I feel so good and I'm in such a good place and I want to keep this up, So it kind of all connects, and I feel like it always starts mentally first, and then it takes effect in the physical realm.
Yeah, and actually mine actually really lends to what you're just explaining, which is, I guess, a focus on, mind you, this is just literally echoing, I feel like, what we've all said. But health begins as soon as you wake up, right? With what Pam is saying about what you say to yourself when you wake up. What Kat is saying about when you put yourself to bed. I feel like all of it is, an ongoing cycle of health. What you say to yourself, even if it is a joke and maybe you're just saying it out loud to be funny, but hey, like, you're hearing that too. And I know that there's a lot of connection between, what you're hearing yourself say, even if it's the mental voice or the very verbal voice, it's energy and tension that you're putting out there that's literally occupying the sound waves around you. So it's quite, it's quite connected to who you are, even if you think you're just letting it go and it's hanging out there. Yeah, health definitely takes up, just as much as your mind as your body. And I think being kind to our mind is just as important as being kind to our body. And, I think, just to keep this cartwheel going, our next real big topic of lessons and aging. Oh,
I still got two on wellness and health. But so my next one for wellness and health is very simple. Water is life. Wake up in the morning, drink a glass of water, my friends. Going to bed late at night, drink a glass of water, my friends. You got a headache? Drink a glass of water. Your stomach hurts? Drink a glass of water. You pissed at somebody? Drink a glass of water. Like, there's really never a reason not to drink more water in your life, because the majority of us as humans are not drinking enough water. So chances are, if you're worried that you're drinking too much water, you're not that person. You're probably not that person. And if you are that person, you are very well aware that you're that person because you probably have your nice gallon of water. We envy these people because they do amazing jobs. But here's my thing. I wonder how many of them genuinely do finish it by the end of the day. I give them props, for making that mental effort, to give themselves a verbal cue that allows them to start understanding and tracking how much water they're putting into their body. But my friends, like, it's the overwhelming majority of what we are when we are putting in the proper amount of water. And when we don't, that's when all of our systems start to shut down. And we're young, we're healthy, we have vitality, we're just starting to take vitamins now because we're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the same as I was 5 years ago. Crazy. You're probably not drinking enough water, and really, really simple thing to add to your diet. Guys, I know we're in Miami, Café Bustelo is life, but you gotta start drinking more water, especially, it's hot here. Anyone from South Florida or just anywhere generally in the South, it's also summertime. So can't express it enough, and it's something that I still work on every day, but I have reminders on my phone. There's so many different apps, talking about affirmations. You can set a reminder for yourself without an app to just drink water, check in with yourself, treat yourself. You deserve it. And the last topic on wellness that I have is you are what you eat and you eat what you feel, but it's only as deep as that. We know scientifically that our bodies cycle out through our diets every 2 weeks, which is why usually when people go on cleanses or detoxes, they're never really longer than 14 days, unless it's a very extreme one because of a condition that your body is in. And that's because it's really that easy to regenerate what's happening inside of your body. Like, of course, we can all have things that we might be going through. Of course, I'm not necessarily educated enough to talk about different types of eating disorders. I hope that it's something that we can explore in the future. But as far as today, what we eat and our cravings, especially as women, all of these things are related to what's going on inside of our brains and what we feel about ourselves in that moment and in that time, and it's always self-talk. That's what's controlling our hunger and our appetite, because generally as humans, initially from where we come from in our primal state, we only ate about one meal a day because we, had to go out and kill it ourselves or find it ourselves and forage for it ourselves. And so we live in a really, really crazy time right now where there are so many different perspectives on what people think is right and what people think is wrong. But all that matters is what you think of yourself, because you're the one that you have to go to bed with every night. And if you're proud of what you put into your body for nourishment that day, live with that and enjoy that and feel that and be proud of yourself for that. And if you don't feel that way, I'm not saying that you should go with that. I'm saying you should question why, because it's only as deep as what you feel about what you're putting into your body, because there's always a reason why you did it. Oh shoot, I don't know. I had like 3 milkshakes today, or 3, I had 3 milkshakes last week and I don't know why I did it. What happened? What happened to you on Friday? How was your work week? Like when's the last time you checked in with your friends? How's your mom doing? There's always a reason why you're doing these things. And if you look at it as self-harm, why? I just ask you to go a little bit deeper and start asking you those questions, because you'll learn about yourself and your relationship with food, because we all have one, and it's not bad. It's just not treated, and it's not being, nurtured.
And now we're moving into quite, the curse and the blessing of clichés in adulthood. However, we're going to talk about the clichés that are actually really, really true, unfortunately.
So I think it's mine short, and it just needs these words and that's it. And I know we've all heard it a bunch of times, and when we hear it, we roll our eyes. But you know what? You are enough. You are enough for yourself. You can only do the best that you can. You can't be more than who you are and what you are. And that's enough. I don't care, what your parents may say, what your significant other may say, what your siblings may say. Even if you're in a really tough spot, like, you are enough. You are a human being. You have feelings, you have emotions, your opinions matter. What you think, what you say matter. This has kind of been things that have been echoing, I feel, with all of our lessons, right? In trying to create that awareness and self-awareness to not only become healthier, but also better human beings, I think. And I think it also starts with the self and acknowledging the fact that you are enough. And this is something that has taken me my whole life up to now, to really learn and internalize. And when I think about that, I also think about all of the stages of my life, when I was 5 years old, when I was 10, when I was 13, when I was 15, all of these thoughts that I had that was so self-deprecating. And now I can stand here and say, you know what? No, Pam, you are enough. All those other people, they were wrong. They had their own things to deal with, won't hold that against them. As Caitlin said earlier, everyone's changing. Just be kind. But that also includes being kind to yourself, and you are enough.
Yeah. And I think, oddly enough, mine's is also simple. I kind of noticed that, like, all of our clichés are quite simple phrases. Thank God. And mine's is something I unfortunately just did not believe in because I thought it was a cliche. Independence is confidence. I, for the longest time, went without driving, and I actually didn't get my license until I was 26. And I've only been, I've only been driving for a short amount of time in my life. And I don't think I realized how much that affected my perspective on myself and others until I started driving. And I was like, oh, I can just leave. Like, I don't want to be here right now. Oh, I can just leave, whereas before I had to depend on, people that I got to the party there with, or, I had to depend on friends that, got fucked up and I can't trust them anymore. And I would be putting my life at risk. And, sometimes it's not that drastic, but nonetheless, you have the confidence, you have the control to get yourself out of a situation, whether it be, calling an Uber, which, by the way, means you have financial needs and some sort of independence, at least through that, to get out of that situation. Or you have the car, the vehicle, and the ability to leave and drive away. That's so important. I didn't have that option for a long time. And I feel like people out there are not going to understand this unless they're people that also don't drive, because it's so frustrating, so vulnerable to be in a spot where you have to, kind of be like, hey, can you give me a ride home? Like it was the worst. And, I don't think I hated it as much as when I was doing it, but take it from me, when you're at this spot and you have all this freedom, all this independence and really the confidence that comes with it, you're like, why did I wait so long? To put myself, to give myself that ability, whether it be driving, whether it be, the financial independence, whether it be just living on your own, right? Taking that leap, believing that you deserve this space, you deserve this skill. It changes your whole perception of what you're worth, of really your value and your ability, and, that kind of freedom that comes from independence definitely helps you build all of these great traits that come from, confidence, like valuing your time, right? Valuing your space, and really valuing like, hey, this isn't right for me. I need to get out of this party. I need to leave my friend's house right now, or I need to leave my house, right? All of that you wouldn't have, without the independence.
I mean, even to add on to that, think about it when you're little. If you can't do something by yourself, you start throwing a fit, you're frustrated, you cry. But when little kids, they do something by themselves, like you praise them and they get so happy and they can't believe that they did it and they have this confidence. On Netflix, there's a show called, I know it in Japanese, Hajime de no Tsukai. And it's basically Japanese toddlers that go out on their first errand by themselves. Granted, this is in Japan, a lot safer. The community also tends to support each other and take care of the children amongst them. But from the ages of 2 to 4 years old, they go on their own errand, and they do this to raise the child's confidence in themselves. So yeah, I agree. That's super important.
Yeah. Independence. And, I think what's great about that show as well is that it's like almost, the word is leaving my mind right now, but it's like a benchmark. Your first chore, you did it on your own. And, maybe we don't consciously, celebrate that as much in the US, because a lot of, I know in my family, it's like a given, like, hey, you got to do it. You got to do it or, die. But we don't actually celebrate. And I think that's so important.
Yeah. Celebrate the little wins.
Exactly.
The name of the show is Old Enough in English for anyone who would like to watch it, because it is adorable. It's crazy. It's so cute. So my cliche is do it today because tomorrow never comes. So I definitely think this is a really important lesson. I'm going to tell you guys actually a short story about when I understood this lesson for the very first time. And I think definitely Pamela can relate to me on this one. Can I get a little personal with you guys? But hey, first episode, let's go. So when I was 21, it was Mother's Day, and I received some of the worst news in my entire life, that a really dear friend of both mine and Pamela's would have passed away the night before at the hands of the wheel, because he was drunk driving and he crashed into a wall and died on impact. And when that happened, I immediately thought about the entire life of my friend since I'd known him, and where he had gotten to in his life was like it was as if he was at the precipice of the rest of his life. He was finally like getting his, finally getting everything together. You know, he had all of his ducks in a row. Finally, he was in a fraternity. He was finally like doing really, really well in some of his classes that he had struggled in prior. He had a girlfriend. He was on top of the world, and life was taken from him far too young. And it was just such an alarm clock for me. You know, I think for all of us, that life is way too short to wait for tomorrow to come up. You'll come up with 1,000 excuses not to do what you love. But within the month, I enrolled for art school, and I began my journey for the conservatory, because it's so sad to think that because of my relationship with this person and his life being taken away, that was what I needed in life to get me back on track towards living the life that I always knew I was destined to live. But I honor that every single day by living that life for him who couldn't, you know, and since then, so many others have been taken, you know, in my lifetime, that were so close to me and so dear to me. And it's something that we cannot avoid in this life. And we can't be afraid, you know, we can be afraid of anything, you know, but why be afraid of death when death is inevitable, you know? And so just cherish everything that you have, because you don't know if you're going to have it tomorrow, you know? And again, just do it today. Do it today. Fail, but do it. Do it today.
Yeah. And our friend's nickname was Superman. And even Superman has kryptonite, you know? So nobody is an exception to this rule. So, yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys.
No worries. Drink some tea, girl.
Yeah, I think it was a tea leaf that actually got caught in my throat. So
No. Those blooming teas will get
teas. Caution. I think I wanted to also add, because that alarm clock kind of hit me in a very delayed response. Because as a kid, I had lost like two very important women in my life, like so close together. So I kind of had like, and by the way, I also know that when we're kids, our perceptions of these things are very skewed and probably very inaccurate, because we don't really know what's happening, especially when it comes to death. But my mom had passed away, and I kind of thought like, oh shit, you know, like what the fuck is the world now? And then, you know, I got very close to my aunt, who became basically like a second mom to me. And then she also died very quickly after. And I thought, well, holy, like, you know, fuck times two, right? And I thought to myself, you know, okay, well, that's just how it is, right? And as a kid, you kind of take that, but then when you grow and then this is the delayed alarm, right? You kind of think, well, not you, but I definitely thought about how much they had done for me and I hadn't taken advantage of, because, you know, again, I fell into the trap that a lot of kids do, like, oh, my life is forever, you know, and they're kind of allowed that privilege, right? But that alarm goes off, you know, and definitely that alarm of like, today is what's important, tomorrow is not. And, you know, even when you're thinking about death and when you're looking at someone who maybe, like in my case, like my mom had cancer, like she knew that she was probably going to pass away, that lesson becomes 10 times more important. I'm not promised tomorrow, but I have today. So in honor of all of your past loved ones, take advantage of that lesson. Yeah. I think on that note, we're definitely going to keep on talking about those loved ones in our lives, that even if they're not in our beds or holding our hands, they're still just as important to us in our lives. And I think I also want to start us off on that and say, most of the time, you're not a victim, but experiencing a consequence to what you allow people to do in your life. Now, I know that's kind of switching the tones, right, of what we just said, like appreciate today, but everything in life is a balance. And just as much as understanding what is good in your life, savor, also understand what is bad in your life, didn't just come there or didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's always a sequence. There's always a reason. There's always a reason for things to happen, right? It's kind of the inverse of everything happens for a reason. Okay, fine. But also, if you're drunk and going out and, dancing to Bad Bunny every night, don't be surprised that, you're coming home with maybe a little bit more than just sweat, right? Hello, positive COVID tests. Okay. But that's, a simple form of what, on a much more impactful and personal scale can happen. Like, hey, if you're harboring a toxic relationship, don't be surprised if that breakup blows up in your face and you're hurt. We are, and this is definitely not to victim blame, because, that's a whole separate conversation, but let's not be, victims to our own actions. Let's be aware of them instead, right? Instead of just, playing surprise every time. Like, no, we know what we're doing. And I feel like if people take ownership of that, things will be less of a surprise and more of intention, right? And more of building to something rather than just Jack in the Box.
Yeah. I mean, to piggyback off of that, my next lesson that I've learned, the length of any relationship does not outweigh the quality of that relationship. And I think in part of that conversation that you have with yourself of what am I allowing into my life right now? Like, what is it that I am not setting a boundary for my own sake? I think it's important to also take into account the quality of your relationships, no matter what they are. Friendship, partner, family relationships. A lot of the times I see, especially recently on social media, it's been trending like, oh, I have years of friends of 20 plus years. I have friends of 10 plus years. And it's almost like a trophy that everyone is kind of parading in front of people. And that is amazing. If you are able to hold relationships to that extent, that's great. But the other side to that coin is, are those relationships worth extending and keeping in your life? A lot of the times we feel like we need to stay in specific relationships, or we owe a relationship with somebody because of how long we've known them. But if you sit down and start to think about the quality of that relationship, what are you giving? What are they giving? Is this an even input-output sort of effort? Because, a relationship goes both ways. It can't just be you giving all the time or you receiving all the time. It's a balance. And, this is a hard lesson that I've had to learn with 3 important people in my life. 2 of which were longtime friends from my childhood. One, which was my first ex-boyfriend of, I think, almost 6 to 7 years. And that's kind of something that I've always told myself, oh my God, but I've known them for so long, or we've been here for so long. How could I not be more patient with them? Give them that extra, pass, to things that they are doing to me. No, I have to acknowledge if I'm not happy, if I'm not in a good place, or if there's something about this relationship that's not good, what am I allowing? And am I allowing that length of the relationship outweigh the quality of it? And I had to learn that I was doing that. And, I placed certain boundaries for myself, and now I put value over the quality of relationships, over how long I've known somebody. And, life has shown me sometimes somebody can come into your life. You only know them for a year or 2, and they already have a much higher quality of a relationship with you than somebody that maybe you've known for like 10, 15 years. So it's very important to really hone in, focus in on that. And I guess clean your glasses, really look at what you're looking at. I have to wear glasses, so I'm going to say I was a little blind for a bit, but I see clearly now.
What type of prescription is this?
I'm very blind. If I take it off right now, I can't see you guys.
So to piggyback on interpersonal communication, I've got a wise set of words that were actually given to me by an acting professor. Shout out David Quiet from New World School of the Arts. So he taught me this. in acting, but I think it's actually a little bit more true in life. People don't say what they mean, but they mean what they mean. Take more things at face value and live an honest life. So I am extremely over analytical. I grew up predominantly as an only child before my mother would marry, which was actually for her first time, my stepdad now, when I was around 11 years old, which means that I received 3 new siblings at 11. And I immediately turned into a very, very introverted person because I felt like an outsider in my own home. I love everybody in my family. We're all good. That's just how I felt when I was a child. And one thing that I started to do was second guess everything that I did, because it was hard enough in school, to like worry. But then when I started at home, wondering what people were thinking about me when I was now at home, that is when it initially started. And that would continue on for the rest of my life, only getting worse. I went through middle school and puberty and all of that. And so I started to really just focus way too much on what like new friends or even sometimes best friends that I would be thinking I was maybe spending too much time with, that like, oh, there's got to be something that they don't like and they're not telling me. I'm just going to have to figure it out because I could never just ask. And then that would eventually turn into this like downward spiral of me just not being able to trust anybody because I felt like everybody had something to say about me that they just couldn't say to my face, whether or not that was actually true. It's what I was telling myself was true. And so it was like, crumbling me inside. And so I had to learn. And I think that I eventually learned this in my early 20s when I started working at a restaurant and I was exposed to tons of very, very extroverted personalities. And I started experiencing for like the very first time, because I put myself into that situation, people who do say what they mean, And so then I got to start really understanding that some people do say what they mean. And some people are still saying it, but they're not exactly saying it. But guess what? They still want me to believe what they're saying. So what's easier for me to do? Like answer them the way that I think they might be trying to talk to me, or just answer them the question that they asked me? What's easier for me? It's easier for me to do the latter, and then I get to walk away. I don't have to question or wonder what their intentions or motives were. And so that's when I decided that was what I was going to do. And ever since then, I feel like I live a much more honest life. I understand the relationship that someone wants to create with me, instead of wondering if there's more or less there, instead of wondering if this person maybe just doesn't like me or has a bad energy. Well, no, what did they say? What are the facts? And you can start to really understand who is in your life, who's rooting for you, who's not rooting for you, just based off of the words that are coming out of their mouth and not what you thought they might be feeling when they were feeling it.
And I would love to kind of bring in something that, even though it's a little bit of a hopscotch, is not that far away, I promise everybody, so bear with me. If you're afraid to make someone unhappy, right? You're sacrificing your own happiness and turning yourself into an emotional babysitter. And I don't know how many times I've been told by the professionals, okay, this is a form of abuse, right? It's literally the abuser controlling the climate, constantly putting their victim, responsible for their reactions, right? And that's abuse, right? No, it's not. Your reactions are what you mean, not what somebody else is bringing out of you, right? Like we're trying to move away from it, as Kat was saying before. And you know what? Take this with you in a very awareness of what other people might be forcing out of you too. Because, if you're coming up with these scenarios in your head, let's just take a step back and ask ourselves, is it the cat? Am I creating this, right? Is it the cat? Or is it this person makes me feel like I'm responsible for their emotions? And you are not responsible for anybody's emotions, right? The only thing you can do is, hey, if you're feeling a certain way, let's talk about it. But I am definitely not the instigator here, right? People have to take accountability of their own emotions, just like you have to do so for yourself. and say what you mean to other people, just like people should say what they mean to you. I have definitely been a victim of that. So I say this in definitely not a, aha, you're wrong, I'm right. No, I was wrong. I was wrong, so I can say I was wrong. And I'm telling you, all the wrongies out there, I'm one of you. I was definitely always in the same scenario that Kat was pretty much talking about, which is why Pam was looking at me when she was saying it. Because I am very much someone who feels like if I didn't do something right, that's why this person walked away from me or said, okay. And now I'm like, honestly, my anxiety levels are like, what does the okay mean? Which is silly. Okay is just okay. And I'm not responsible for it. You know what? Even if the okay is passive aggressive, like, hey, I'm not responsible for that. Especially if I didn't do anything, just take the objective facts and let that person feel what they're feeling and do not make yourself responsible. And if you are feeling like you're captive of that situation, you need to walk away, because nobody can hold you in their own emotions, right? That's definitely not your job, and it shouldn't be where you're being held.
So this next tip, I will begin. It's actually a quote. Well, it's not a quote. So there's a wonderful shaman. His name is Don Miguel Ruiz, and he's got several different books that he's written over the course of his life as a shaman that are very, very well received. And one of them is called The Four Agreements. This is one of his introductory novels. I think it's one of the first that he wrote, because it has some of the four most, in his opinion, most important tools on how to live a successful life as a human on this earth. And the one that I want to mention now is to be impeccable. I'm going to say that again, with your word. And so words like narcissist, passive aggressive, abrasive, these words should be used as tools in understanding who other people are, but never as weapons. And if that means never saying them to a person's face because you know that it's going to trigger something in them emotionally, that is what you need to discern yourself to do. Because these words they're scientific definitions, right? They're ways to discern and understand other people, because when you look these things up, they teach you how to approach these types of people. Because one, we already talked about how we are always changing, which means that someone who may not have been this way may have encountered something in their life that has now altered their state of mind and made them this type of person now. Or vice versa. Maybe they weren't and now they've become less, and you have to discern and change your mentality of them because they are no longer that person. And when you say that they still are, you're triggering something. And so we shouldn't use words as weapons, and when words are used as weapons towards us, it's very important to, even if you have, and you feel like you are eons above them in your understanding of who you are and who other people are. If you can see where they are, that they're not going to be receiving this well, why would you do to them what they just did to you? Why would you want to make them feel how they are attempting to make you feel? Because if you do that to them, then you're showing yourself that you have not grown as much as you thought you did. And this is something that still is feeding you for some reason. And so, again, words like narcissist and passive aggressive, they're just words. And some, there are narcissists who are incredibly beautiful, wonderful people. And this is just one tiny part of who they are as a whole, And so understand that people are so much more than the words that we call them.
Yeah, I think honestly, this whole category has been a way of protecting yourself while also valuing and assessing everyone else around you. It's a good way to sum it up.
Yeah. And, speaking of assessing, I think I'm about to assess some adults and some things that might be, some misconceptions that at least I've had about adulthood. And my personal lesson for this is that adults have no fucking idea what the hell they're doing.
One more time.
Adults, let me clear my throat. Adults have no fucking idea what they are doing. Okay? They make mistakes. They're always figuring it out as they go. And I think that as children, we idolize adults because we expect them to know everything, especially our parents. But there is no book. I mean, yeah, you can get all these books that talk about parenting and parenting techniques, but at the end of the day, you have no control over your child and how they're going to be and who they're going to be. And they're figuring it out and you're figuring yourself out. And even myself as a 28-year-old alleged adult, allegedly, I can't confirm. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. And sometimes I feel like I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. And that's okay. Because nobody else knows what the fuck they're doing. You know, everybody's figuring it out. They're figuring themselves out. It's a lifetime of work. And I think that's part of the beauty of life. You know, you figure it out. Things change. Things are growing. That is the only constant with nature. And in doing that, there will be many moments where you will think, holy shit. What am I supposed to do? What is normal? What is this? Oftentimes you'll like Tess knows this. I'll tell her, I'm not ready for this version of the simulation. Like, take me out. So that's mine.
Yeah, and that was promptly a response to a good morning.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So for me, a very big adulting misconception is, and I actually learned this from a podcast, is admit when you don't know something, because all of the most intelligent people in your life most likely already do this. It's actually a very common habit of intelligent people because they're so confident about what they know. They're never afraid to admit what they don't know because they've also created a very, very healthy relationship with learning and with knowledge, and that it's okay to not know something because it's an open door to figuring it out. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't have one because these two girls just knocked it out of the park, and I agree with every fucking word they just said. But I will introduce us to our last but not least, and hopefully most, a positive topic for us all, because we would love to leave our viewers and our listeners to this, is pretty much the grand blessing and curse of creating your own reality and how you do that at this age, being a quote unquote 28-year-old adult. I'm going to start us off by saying that whatever reality you think you're living in, right, it definitely doesn't live in one moment. You are absolutely not defined by one moment. In fact, that is something that people fall into, party that's speaking included, that traps us right in that moment by our fears and anxieties. And we just turn into crystals, frozen in those fears and anxieties. And that is not your reality. That is emotion and thought doing what your brain thinks it's supposed to do, which is, keep on happening, keep on thinking, right? Because if the mind doesn't do that, it thinks it's not doing its job. But hey, that doesn't mean it's always right. It's just, which is something I really want to thank my practices in meditation and walking meditation, which is let go of thoughts. They're just there. That doesn't mean they're true or they're wrong. They're just there and you let them go. And unfortunately, this is the same for perceptions of other people. They're not right. They're not wrong. They're just there. And we don't have to fall victim to them. Because as soon as that person thinks something bad about us, they're probably going to find their favorite influencer on Instagram, and that's what they're going to care about next. And they totally forgot about you. So, check and check. And I think, honestly, this is so important for people who are young and so invested in social media, because that's basically what they saw their parents looking at, in even, especially, a lot of us who are young parents and, the babies of the 2000s, they definitely value the internet a lot more than I feel like even the 90s babies do. And the one wrong thing on the internet makes a kid feel like their life is over. And that's such a symptom to a really bad epidemic of just youth suicide. That's not something anybody should think is a last resort just because of one wrong post, one, bad mistake on the internet. So as simple as like, hey, this is just an emotion, to as serious as that does not dictate your life, one mistake, right?
Yeah. And just to piggyback off that really quick, kind of a fun fact, Monica Lewinsky from the trials with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, she was considered patient zero for cyberbullying because since she was at the turn of Y2K, she was actually the very first person that would encounter widespread bullying over the internet, which is the reason why now, since the late 2000s, like in the teens of the 2000s, she started doing TED Talks about cyberbullying to express how important that is and how something that she thought really marked her for her entire life. She eventually began to realize that there was still more to her life because she is an actual human being and she's not what all of these people were telling her, because for so long she really believed that. So I think that's so important. No, you are more than just one moment in your life. So for me, taboo topic, probably it's 2022. Everyone loves to manifest. You can manifest this. You can manifest that. You can manifest this. You can manifest anything your heart's desire. So yes, these are all more or less true. However, what is so important is to remember that manifestation is not just a word that we can throw around. It's a practice, and it does require a lot of practice in order to achieve, which is why when you have achieved a manifestation, it's a full body experience. It's inner and outer, because it's understanding that you created something for yourself. You remained open to the universe, right? You remained open to your guides. You remained open to what the cards were speaking to you. You remained open to your community, everything around you. You are a vessel. You're understanding that about yourself. And for that reason, it is so much more than just saying, I'm going to manifest this for myself, and you can say it every single day that you're going to manifest it for yourself. But what are you doing to make this your reality? And I say this as someone who for a time did think that it was as simple as saying I was manifesting it. It was really as simple as like my girl gang at the time, we had I kind of discovered the concept and the topic, and we thought it was super awesome, super cool. We were a very, very tight group. And so we kind of just started saying it colloquially, oh, we're manifesting this. And it was a nice time, but it's not like any changes were happening or occurring in our life. All that it really kind of inspired was for us to search down and dig deeper, because we realized that just saying this aloud wasn't actually going to be doing anything for us, because it's not just saying something aloud. It's an entire spiritual practice that has been going on for centuries, and it's ancient for a reason, and it deserves a lot more respect than what modern culture is kind of giving it right now. I think that there are plenty of people who understand and truly do practice manifestation, but I think there are also a lot of people who it's just very oversaturated as an idea. And so you just have to really be curious, about what it is that you want to do more of in your life. Don't take the easy way out, because I promise you, manifestation is not an easy way out. It's very challenging. It's very difficult, but it's extremely rewarding when it happens for you.
Yeah. Mine is the secret to life is perspective. And I think this goes with what you just said, with everything that we've been saying on this episode. I think this is the link to all of them, right? In terms of creating that self-awareness, that awareness of others and of yourself is just perspective. You know, if you view something as manifestation as stupid, it's not going to work for you, or it's not going to, you know, if you have that perspective on it, how do you expect it to work? But if you have this perspective of, no, this is going to work and I'm going to put in that effort and I'm going to make this happen, you know, that's, I think, really distinguishes people from people who can become successful and people who kind of get stuck, is that shift in perspective. Because as we've said before, your reality is what you make of it. Things can affect that, things around you. And so it's about changing your mind and how you think of that and how you're going to take that and what you're going to accept from that and how you're going to see those facts. If you think about it, even facts can be, you know, manipulated. I've seen facts and statistics used all the times from two opposite ends of the argument. And it's all about how you work things and how you view them and how you decide to shine the light. Even Instagram, all of these influencers that are out there posting pictures of their big booties and all of this stuff. There's a lot of people that are advocating for that transparency, right? And trying to remind people that Instagram is not reality. What is it that people do in Photoshop? Shading, lighting, it's all perspective. So I think that the secret to life, I figured it out at the age of 28, is perspective. Add a little bit to everything that you eat, that you drink in your life, the air that you breathe, and just know that what you see may not be what somebody else sees. And that's okay. And that you could also see the same thing your whole entire life, and all of a sudden you see it from a different angle and you see something completely different. You know, what's that experiment that a lot of the times people will use? I think in law, they use it. I remember reading where they'll have the image. I'm sure you guys have probably seen this somewhere, where it's an image that you can see it, and it could you'll either see an old woman or a young woman. And it all depends on what you're seeing. And this exercise, basically what it is that they'll have two images, and the professor will give half of the class one image that will highlight certain areas that will make them see the young woman. The other half will get that same image, but that's highlighting aspects that will make them see the old woman. And then when the discussion time comes for both of them to convince the other side what they saw, they'll see the same picture, but this picture won't have any emphasis. And the thing that they saw the first is what they're going to immediately be drawn to and see. And it's interesting to see how students or people that are participating in this activity will fight and argue with so much determination and so much passion, and that it's so factual that their perspective is right and the other one is wrong. The reality is they're both right. You know, it just depends on how you view it. So next time you're ever stuck, you feel frustrated, whatever the case may be, kind of take a seat, sit back, and think about it. You know, how am I seeing this? How else can this be seen? Is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that they're missing? It could be an argument that you're having with somebody. What am I not happy with in my life? What am I happy with? Well, with what I'm not happy with, what can I change? You know, it's just viewing it in a different lens, just a little bit. And even, you know, sometimes this happens with artists too, like seeing it from a different light. And then finally getting, you know, their inspiration or the answer that they want. Scientists, you go to the same thing and tackle it from the same angle, and you get 500 tries and all 500 times fail. Something needs to change. That's not working, you know? So perspective.
And I believe this is the last one. I can't believe we made it. Wow. Okay. So I will close this off. This is the last thing that we wish we knew before we were 28, but we know it now and we're so stoked. Learn to fall in love with the things that you do every day and take lots of pictures. So, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I feel like life, this is a quote from one of my favorite house artists, actually. They're Above and Beyond. They've been creating music for almost 30 years now. And their biggest mantra is that life is made of small moments like these. It'll always occur at some point within every single one of the concerts that they've done. And they've done almost 500 concerts from just one specific series. And this is something that will always reign true at every single one of their concerts. And I say this because for me, it means everything, like the amount of time that I wait for them to be in my city to go to a show. The amount of time that you wait for the countdown for it to be the day of to go to the show, being at the show, and then waiting for that one moment when they're going to throw those words up on the screen and everyone in the crowd, I'm getting goosebumps as I think about it, but everyone in the crowd for that one moment feels exactly the same, which is that this is why they're here. Because life is made of small moments like this that shape who we are and why life is worth living and what's exciting and what makes life different from anything else that we have. And I can say that for anything, like as we're all animal owners here, like fall in love with taking care of your pet. Fall in love with giving your kitty food in the morning. Fall in love with the way that they wake you up before because they're so excited that you're about to be awake. They know your schedule better than you do, and they're just waiting at the edge of the bed before they pounce on you to wake you up to go fill up their water bowl. Like, fall in love with those things because you have a creature who you're the most important thing in their entire universe to. And that's so special. And that's something that only you can offer them. And the more that you look for little trinkets like that in life, the more magical your life will become. And I really mean that word magical because we are so mystical and there's so much that we have the power to do and create for ourselves. And I say take lots of pictures to kind of piggyback on that same one because something that I've learned the hard way is that when I'm not happy, I don't take pictures. And I can have amazing experiences and I can do some of the coolest things in my life. But unfortunately, because I was in a state of depression or just not being happy with where I was in life, even though I was doing something that was a small moment that made life special, I didn't document it the way that I wish I would have and that I still, can say that I regret not having done because it's almost as if in that moment I decided that even though this was really special, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth me taking out my phone. It wasn't worth me snapping a quick Polaroid for that specific moment. And then boom, I'm in the car on the ride home or on the flight home and I'm thinking about that one thing I should have taken a photo of because that's actually what was the coolest thing. And maybe that's why I was so hesitant or reluctant in the moment because I was vulnerable, with whatever that was creating in me. And it's happened so many times, and so I've learned that, again, life is too short and I need to document everything that makes me feel like it's forever.
And I think that we are carrying in a little bit of magic into today in more than one way. And that leads us off to something that we're going to hold as a ceremony towards every end of the episode, which is why I'm going to pass it on to our resident tarot reader, Pam.
Yeah. So, as Kat said, fall in love with the things that you do every day. You can honestly find magic in the smallest of things. Think about, even in religion, people like in Catholicism, the rosemary is just a necklace, but the power comes from your belief in it. And falling in love.
Sure. Rosary, everybody. Rosemary
you can tell I wasn't
a wonderful herb, but rosaries are what we use in Catholicism.
You can tell I wasn't raised in Catholicism.
It's okay. It's okay. We have one here.
But yeah, and so what we would like to do is kind of add some magic to your podcast listening time. And at the end of every episode, you can expect me, maybe sometimes Tess to fill in, for a single card pull. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to shuffle the deck and kind of wait for a card to fall out and pull a card and kind of describe to you guys any messages that might be coming up that the cards may want to share with us. So
I want to take a deep breath. That's for you, listener. I hope you're taking a deep breath one more time.
So, the card that came out. Before I scare you all, I think honestly, it kind of resonates a lot with what we've been saying, right? So the card that came out was the Devil card. And a lot of you might be scared. And this card is actually the Capricorn card, and I'm a Capricorn. So I just thought it was funny. And basically, this is a part of the major arcana. So tarot is comprised of minor and major arcana. Major arcana kind of describes the fool's journey. And in that, the devil is a part of that. And this card kind of signifies, a lot of the ego. So in everything that we've kind of spoken to you guys today, a lot of it stems from raising a level of awareness of yourself and others, but also humbling yourself, right? Who do you think you are to try and fix all of these people? Why can't you just be somebody who can appreciate all of these small things? Like, do you think yourself so big that you can't do that? And the image kind of depicts a goat person. So it's a person with a goat head. So typical representation of the devil. And there's wings, and then there's two people, and they are naked and they are chained to each other. And the devil, a lot of the times, besides the ego, it could be a lot of the stuff that maybe we're indulging ourselves in. So in echoing what we have talked about earlier, what are things that you're allowing to happen? And really, it's that you have this control. You have the power to set your ego aside. You're the one that's allowing yourself to indulge in all of these things, So, what is it that you're trying to hide? What is it that you're not trying to see? What is holding you back and kind of preventing you? And a lot of the times, I will say this card is kind of really echoing and emphasizing for me right now is the ego, and kind of sitting down and reflecting, like, why is my ego stopping me from accomplishing everything that I want to do or being in a place where I want to be in, and really take that time to sit down and reflect, because at the end of the day, I think what this card is really trying to remind us all is what's really holding you back. Is it that outside thing, or is it something internally? Is it something that you're doing? And if you guys notice in a lot of representations of hell, some of the times you'll just see, maybe torture, but then there's this other perspective that you see from a third party where a lot of those sinners are torturing themselves. Nothing's actually happening. They're doing it to themselves. So, I think that's kind of what the cards would like to remind us. And keep in mind that, it starts from us. It starts with you. You're enough. You have the power to change anything that you'd like. And, with that, I would just like to leave with you guys, letting you know that you can expect a lot more variety of content from us. We plan on releasing episodes bi-weekly, so you can hear us at least twice a month. And we really are very excited for this project, this podcast. We can't wait to bring more magic and mysticism into your life. And we really hope that you enjoyed listening. And is there anything else you guys would like to say before we sign off?
Yeah. We, again, are just so grateful to those of you who are listening to us in our beginning stages. Because, it's everyone who's watching this, I'm sure, knows how much of a labor of love it's been for the three of us to get this together. So that being said, we appreciate so much the feedback that we've gotten just to get this podcast started. And we would love to see it continue. So if you guys want to why don't you leave us a comment with one of the tips that we left today, and one particularly that really struck you, or you were like, oh yeah, that one, I felt that, or something, whatever you'd kind of like to leave us with, a little trinket of just how it left you and how it made you feel is what I would like to know.
And thank you all for joining us for some tea and some mystique, and for joining High Tea Mystique. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.